world knows tales of kings, but there is an older story, from when time itself was afraid.
Olympus does not yet exist, but the spark that will set it ablaze has just opened his eyes.
A boy raised among storms, who learned to master the thunder before he even knew his own name.
He carries the weight of lost siblings in his gaze, and a question that burns hotter than any lightning.
Before time, before the gods, before there was even a name for the void, there was only chaos. It was not darkness, it was not silence, it was the absolute absence of everything that would one day exist. An abyss without form or purpose, suspended in nothingness, awaiting the first heartbeat of the universe. And then, from that primordial nothingness, something emerged. Gaia, the earth, the first mother, she who existed before the concept of existence itself. Her body stretched out like an infinite mantle, creating the surface upon which everything else would be built. From her depths sprang mountains. From her breath were born valleys. From her will arose the very possibility of life, but Gaia was alone. And loneliness, even for a primordial goddess, is a weight that no being should carry eternally. It was then that she brought forth Uranus, the sky, a starry mantle that stretched over the earth like an eternal lover, covering her completely, merging with her in a union that would give rise to everything that would come after. From that union were born the first children of the cosmos, the Titans, 12 beings of immeasurable power, 6 males and 6 females, whose mere presence made the foundations of the newly created universe tremble. Oceanus, he who surrounded all lands. Caius, he of celestial intelligence. Creus, lord of the constellations. Hyperion, father of the sun. Iapetus, ancestor of humanity. And Cronus, the youngest, the most cunning, the most dangerous of them all. But the Titans were not the only children of that primordial union. Gaia also gave birth to the Cyclopes, one-eyed giants whose hands could forge the very fire of the stars, and to the Hecatoncheires, creatures of 100 arms and 50 heads, whose strength surpassed anything the universe had known. Until then, they were beings of absolute power. They were the promise of a glorious future. Uranus looked upon them with horror. The sky, who should have loved his own children, felt something very different when he beheld those creatures. He felt fear, a deep and corrosive fear that settled in his chest like a slow poison. The Cyclopes were too powerful. The Hecatoncheires were too monstrous. If they ever decided to rebel, not even he could stop them. And so, driven by that terror no father should feel, Uranus made a decision that would change the course of the cosmos forever. He chained them, his own children. He hurled them into the deepest depths of the earth, into Tartarus, an abyss so profound that a bronze anvil would take 9 days to fall from its entrance to its bottom. There he left them, chained in eternal darkness, condemned to a prison from which they would never escape. Gaia felt the pain of her children as if it were her own. Every scream that emerged from Tartarus was a stab in her mother's heart. Every chain that imprisoned the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires was an unforgivable affront. And little by little, the love she had once felt for Uranus transformed into something very different, into hatred, into thirst for vengeance, into the cold and calculated determination of one who has decided that certain crimes cannot go unpunished. It was then that Gaia summoned her other children, the Titans. She spoke to them of their brother's suffering. She showed them the weight of the chains that imprisoned them, and she asked them a question that resonated to the edges of the universe. Who among you will have the courage to do what must be done? Who among you will dare to defy the sky itself? 11 Titans remained silent. The fear of their father was too great. Uranus's power was too absolute. No one dared to raise a hand against the Lord of the Firmament. No one except Cronus. The youngest of the Titans stepped forward, His eyes gleamed with something his siblings could not identify. Ambition, perhaps, or maybe simply the total absence of fear. Gaia gave him a sickle forged from adamant, the hardest metal that ever existed, and revealed to him the plan she had conceived in the depths of her mind. That night, when Uranus descended to unite with her as he did every evening, Cronus would be waiting. And so it was. The sky descended without suspecting anything. He stretched over the earth as he had done since the beginning of time, confident in his absolute power, certain that nothing could threaten his dominion. He did not see the shadow moving among the rocks. He did not sense the presence approaching in silence. Only when the cold of the adamant touched his flesh, only when the most unbearable pain he had ever experienced pierced his being, did Uranus understand what was happening. Cronus castrated him. The blood of the sky fell upon the earth, and from each drop new beings were born. The Erinyes, spirits of vengeance, who would pursue transgressors until the end of time. The giants, warriors of tremendous power, who would one day challenge the gods. The Meliae nymphs, beautiful and eternal. And from the sea foam where the remains of Uranus fell, emerged Aphrodite, the goddess of love, whose beauty would bring mortals and immortals alike to their knees. Uranus retreated toward the heights, wounded and humiliated, withdrawing forever from the earth he had once loved. But before disappearing into the void of the firmament, he spoke words that Cronus would never forget. You who have raised your hand against your own father, listen well to what I am about to tell you. The day will come when one of your own children will do to you the same thing you have done to me. The day will come when you will be dethroned by your own blood. And when that day arrives, you will remember this moment and understand that destiny cannot be avoided. Cronus heard the prophecy, and instead of feeling fear, he felt contempt. He was different from his father. He was stronger, more cunning, more ruthless. If destiny intended to take his throne through his children, then he would simply make sure that none of his children lived long enough to try. A new era had begun, the era of the Titans. And Cronus sat upon the throne of the universe, ruling with an iron fist, convinced that he had defeated destiny itself. He was wrong. The years passed like sighs for the immortals, and Cronus consolidated his power over all things. He took as his wife his sister Rhea, the titaness of fertility and motherhood, and together they ruled the cosmos from Mount Olympus, the fortress of the Titans. Unlike his father, Cronus did not free the Cyclopes or the Hecatonchires from Tartarus. He kept them chained in darkness, even adding an additional guardian, the dragon Campe, to ensure they would never escape. The tyrant had learned his father's lesson well. Power is maintained by eliminating any threat before it can grow. But there was one threat that not even Cronus could eliminate: time. Uranus's prophecy echoed in his ears every night, depriving him of sleep, gnawing at his mind like a slow poison. One of his children would dethrone him. One of his children would do to him the same thing he had done to his father. And so, when Rhea became pregnant for the first time, Cronus made the most monstrous decision a father can make. Rhea gave birth to a girl, Hestia, the firstborn. Her eyes shone with the light of 1,000 hearths, and her cry was the sweetest sound Rhea had heard in all her immortal existence. The mother extended her arms to embrace her daughter, to cradle her against her chest, to whisper to her the promises every mother makes to her first child. Cronus snatched her away, and before Rhea could even scream, the Titan opened his jaws and swallowed the newborn whole. A single movement, a single instant, and Hestia disappeared into the darkness of her own father's entrails. Rhea fell to her knees. The scream that emerged from her throat made the foundations of Mount Olympus tremble. But Cronus showed no emotion, no remorse, no doubt. The prophecy said that one of his children would dethrone him. The solution was simple: None of his children would live long enough to try. Time continued its inexorable march. Rhea became pregnant again, and once more, Cronus waited beside her during the birth, with his jaws open, ready to receive his next victim. Demeter was born, she who would one day be goddess of the harvest and fertility. Her first cries were also the last the world heard, because an instant later her father had devoured her. Then came Hera, she who was destined to be queen of Olympus, devoured. Then Hades, he who would rule the underworld, devoured. And then Poseidon, the future lord of the seas, devoured as well. 5 children, 5 gods who should have ruled the cosmos, alongside their parents. 5 lives silenced in the darkness of Cronus's belly, where they remained alive but trapped, immortal but prisoners, conscious but unable to do anything to free themselves. And Rhea suffered. Every birth was torture. Every delivery was followed by a loss. Every time she felt life growing within her, she knew that life was condemned before it could even see the light. Her mother's heart was torn apart with each child she lost, and the hatred she felt toward Cronus grew with the same intensity as her pain. But the Titan was too powerful, too vigilant, too determined to ensure the prophecy would never be fulfilled. When Rhea became pregnant for the 6th time, she knew she could not allow history to repeat itself. She could not deliver another child to the jaws of the monster she had married. She could not bear another silenced cry, another life extinguished, another loss that would tear apart what little remained of her soul. So she did something no Titaness had done before. She defied her husband in secret. She sought the help of Gaia, her mother, the primordial earth who had conspired against Uranus and who would now conspire against her own son. Together, they devised a plan. When the moment of birth arrived, Rhea would flee to the island of Crete, far from Cronus's surveillance. There she would give birth in secret, and instead of delivering the baby to her father, she would deliver something very different. The day came. Rhea felt the pains of labor and knew the moment of truth had arrived. Cronus watched her with his devourer's eyes, waiting, eager to receive his next victim. But this time, Rhea was prepared. She fled. She crossed the cosmos at a speed not even the Titans could match, driven by something more powerful than any physical force, the love of a mother who refuses to lose another child. She arrived in Crete as the sun set behind the mountains and took refuge in a cave on Mount Dicte, a sacred place where no eye could reach her. And there, in the darkness of that cavern, surrounded by the silence of the Cretan night, Rhea gave birth to her 6th child, Zeus. The baby opened his eyes, and Rhea saw in them something she had not seen in any of her other children. It was not just the brightness of innocence. It was not just the light of newly born life. It was something more, something ancient and powerful, something that told her this child was different, that this child was destined to change the order of the universe. But there was no time for contemplation. Cronus would be looking for her. The Titan would suspect her absence. Soon he would come to claim what he considered his by right. Rhea needed to act quickly. She wrapped a stone in swaddling clothes, the same stone Gaia had prepared for this moment, a rock the exact size of a newborn, covered with the same cloths that should have wrapped Zeus, and with her heart shattering into 1,000 pieces, Rhea left her son in the care of the beings her mother had designated as his protectors. The nymphs Adrastea and Ida would feed him with the milk of Amalthea, the sacred creature whose horn would one day become the symbol of infinite abundance. The Curetes, divine warriors armed with bronze shields, would dance around the cave, making their weapons resound, creating a din that would drown out the baby's cries so that Cronus could never hear him. And Gaia herself would watch from the depths of the earth, ensuring that her grandson grew strong, healthy, and prepared for the destiny that awaited him. Rhea returned to Mount Olympus with the stone wrapped in swaddling clothes. Cronus waited for her with his jaws open, impatient, eager. He did not ask where his wife had been. He was not interested in the details of the birth. He only extended his enormous hands, received the bundle Rhea handed him, and without even looking at it, brought it to his mouth. The stone disappeared into the Titan's entrails. Cronus smiled, convinced he had devoured his sixth child, convinced that the prophecy had been thwarted once again, convinced that his throne was secure. He had no idea how wrong he was. In Crete, far from the tyrant's eyes, a child was growing among the mountains. The curates taught him to fight before he could walk. The nymphs told him stories of the primordial gods, while the stars wheeled above their heads. And Gaia, through the whispers of the earth itself, revealed to him the truth about his origin, about his siblings trapped in a monster's entrails, about the father who had tried to devour him, about the destiny that awaited him. Zeus listened in silence. He learned, he grew, and with each passing year, something inside him hardened. It was not exactly hatred. It was something colder, more calculated. The absolute determination of one who knows exactly what must be done and is willing to pay any price to accomplish it. The boy became a man, and the man knew the hour had come. He left the mountains of Crete for the first time in his life. He crossed seas no mortal had sailed. He traversed lands no foot had trodden. And as he traveled, he sought allies who shared his cause. He found them in the most unexpected places. Metis, the titaness of prudence and cunning, was the first to join him. She was the daughter of Oceanus and Tethys, beings who had not participated in Cronus's crimes, and her intelligence surpassed that of any other creature in the cosmos. It was she who devised the plan that would allow Zeus to free his siblings. It was she who prepared the potion that would change the course of history. Zeus arrived at Mount Olympus in disguise. Some say he posed as a cupbearer, serving wine at the Titans' banquets. Others claim he simply presented himself to his father as a stranger seeking to serve the king of the universe. The details vary depending on who tells the story. What remains constant is what happened next. The young god waited for the perfect moment. He observed Cronus's habits, studied his weaknesses, memorized every detail of his routine. And when the opportunity finally presented itself, he acted without hesitation. He mixed Metis's potion with the nectar Cronus drank every night. The Titan raised the cup without suspecting anything. He brought it to his lips. He drank. And then the horror began. Cronus felt his entrails twist with a force he had never experienced. The pain was unbearable. The nausea was uncontrollable. And before he could comprehend what was happening, his body began to expel everything he had devoured over the years. First came the stone, the same rock Rhea had given him, making him believe it was Zeus. It fell to the ground with a crash that made the palace walls tremble. Then came Poseidon. The god of the seas emerged from his father's jaws, fully formed, adult, with eyes that burned with the fury of one who has spent an eternity trapped in darkness. Then Hades, the lord of the underworld, materialized with an expression so cold and calculated that even the nearest titans retreated in fear. Hera emerged next, the future queen of Olympus, whose beauty was matched only by her pride and determination. Demeter appeared afterward, the mother of fertile earth, she who would make fields flourish and die of grief every time her daughter descended to the underworld. And finally, Hestia, the firstborn, the first to be devoured and the last to be freed, the goddess of the hearth, who would keep the sacred flame burning until the end of time. 5 gods, 5 siblings who should have died in their father's entrails, 5 beings of immeasurable power who now gazed upon the young one who had freed them. The younger brother, who had accomplished what none of them could, Zeus looked them in the eyes, and in that moment, without anyone speaking a single word, a pact was sealed that would last for all eternity. Cronus would pay for what he had done, the Titans would be dethroned, and the cosmos would have new rulers. War was about to begin, but Zeus knew that he and his siblings alone could not defeat the Titans. Cronus had powerful allies. His brother Titans, most of them at least, would fight at his side. And Mount Olympus was a practically impregnable fortress. To have any chance of victory, they needed to tip the scales in their favor. They needed to free the prisoners of Tartarus. The descent into the depths of the underworld was a journey few could have survived. Zeus crossed caverns where light had not shone since the birth of the cosmos. He forded rivers whose icy waters could freeze the soul of any living being. And he faced Campe, the dragon Cronus had designated as jailer of the Cyclopes and the Hecatonchires. The battle was brutal. Campe was a monster from nightmares, a creature born of primordial darkness whose mere breath could wither life all around her. But Zeus was no longer the child who had grown up in the mountains of Crete. He was a god in every sense of the word, and his determination was absolute. He defeated Campe. Some say he killed her with his own hands. Others claim he simply left her wounded and unable to continue her guard. What matters is what happened next. Zeus broke the chains of the Cyclopes, the three one-eyed giants, Brontes, Steropes, and Arges, who had spent eons chained in darkness, gazed upon their liberator with eyes full of gratitude. And in thanks for their freedom, they offered Zeus and his siblings the most powerful gifts ever forged. For Zeus, they created the thunderbolt, the ultimate weapon, a flash of pure celestial power that no being in the universe could withstand. When Zeus wielded it for the first time, he felt the energy of the cosmos itself flowing through his body. He knew in that instant that he was destined to rule. For Poseidon they forged the trident, a weapon capable of commanding all the waters of the world, of raising waves that touched the sky and opening cracks in the earth with a single blow. For Hades, they created the Helm of Invisibility, a piece of divine craftsmanship that allowed whoever wore it to disappear completely, to become imperceptible to any eye, mortal or immortal. But Zeus did not stop there. He also freed the Hecatonchires, the three giants of 100 arms and 50 heads, Cottus, Briareus, and Gyges, whose combined strength surpassed that of all the Titans together. When they emerged from their prison, Tartarus itself trembled with the thunder of their footsteps. Zeus's army was complete. The gods established their base on Mount Olympus, a mountain that rose toward the heavens with a majesty that rivaled Mount Olympus itself. From there, they issued their challenge to Cronus and the Titans, a challenge that would mark the beginning of the most devastating war the cosmos had ever witnessed. The Titanomachy had begun. If this story is captivating you, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Here, every narrative is a journey through the myths that shaped civilizations. And what comes next in the story of Zeus will leave you breathless. 10 years. That is how long the conflict lasted. 10 years of battles that made the foundations of the universe tremble. 10 years of destruction on a scale no mortal could even imagine. The sky turned to fire every night. The seas boiled with the blood of the fallen. Mountains crumbled under the weight of the combatants. And neither side seemed capable of achieving a definitive victory. The Titans fought from Mount Olympus, led by Cronus and his most fearsome general, Atlas, the son of Iapetus, whose strength was legendary even among immortals. At his side fought most of the children of Uranus and Gaia, determined to maintain the order they had established, willing to do whatever was necessary to preserve their dominion over the cosmos. The Olympians responded from Mount Olympus, with Zeus at the front, wielding the thunderbolt the Cyclopes had gifted him. His siblings fought at his side, Poseidon commanded the aquatic forces, summoning tsunamis and tempests that battered the coasts of Mount Olympus. Hades infiltrated enemy lines, invisible thanks to his helm, sowing chaos and confusion among the Titans. The goddesses also participated, though ancient sources remain silent about the details of their feats in combat. But the true difference was made by the allies Zeus had freed from Tartarus. The Cyclopes worked tirelessly at their forges, repairing damaged weapons, creating new instruments of war, keeping the Olympians' arsenal always in perfect condition, and the Hecatonchires, with their 300 combined arms, hurled rocks the size of mountains against the Titans' positions. Every time they entered battle, the terrain itself was transformed. Craters appeared where plains had been. Entire mountain ranges were erased from the map. The war seemed endless. Year after year, the armies clashed without either achieving a decisive advantage. The Titans were powerful, but the Olympians had the determination of those who fight to change an unjust order. And so, the cosmos remained suspended in a balance of destruction, waiting for something or someone to tip the scales once and for all. That moment came in the 10th year. Gaia, the primordial earth, mother of all Titans and grandmother of all Olympians, pronounced a prophecy. Zeus would obtain victory, but only if he used all the power at his disposal, only if he freed the Hecatonchires from any restriction and let them act with all their fury, only if he himself threw himself into battle with the intention of never retreating. Zeus heard his grandmother's words, and he knew the hour of the final battle had come. The attack began at dawn, or perhaps there was no dawn, because the sky had been covered for years by clouds of ash and smoke rising from the battlefields. What there was a rumble that resonated even in the depths of Tartarus. The Hecatonchires were advancing. 300 rocks flew through the air in the first volley, then another 300, and more still. An endless rain of projectiles that turned every second into an eternity of destruction. The Titans tried to resist, but not even their power could withstand such an onslaught. And then Zeus threw himself into combat. The thunderbolt in his hand blazed with the intensity of 1,000 suns. Every time he hurled it, a blinding flash crossed the battlefield, followed by a thunderclap that deafened those who heard it. The Titans fell one after another, unable to resist the combined power of the king of the gods and his terrible allies. Cronus watched his army crumble. He watched his brothers fall before the relentless assault of the Olympians. And for the first time since he had castrated his own father, the Titan felt fear. But it was too late for fear. Zeus fought his way to where Cronus stood. Father and son met in the midst of chaos, surrounded by the din of the most destructive battle the universe had ever witnessed. There were no words of negotiation. There were no offers of surrender. Only the inevitable clash between two irreconcilable forces. Some say the battle between Zeus and Cronus lasted days. Others claim it was a matter of minutes. Ancient sources vary in the details, but they agree on the outcome. Zeus prevailed. The thunderbolt struck the Titan with a force that sent him flying backward, knocking him down, stripping him of the victory he had believed assured for eons. And as Cronus lay defeated, the Hecatonchires began to bury the Titans under a mountain of rocks. It was over. The Titanomachy came to an end, not with a whisper, but with a rumble that made the edges of the cosmos tremble. The Titans were chained and hurled into Tartarus, the same place where they had kept the Cyclopes and Hecatonchires imprisoned for eons. The irony escaped no one. The former prisoners became the jailers, and the former tyrants became the prisoners. Zeus gazed upon the devastated battlefield. Mountains had changed shape, rivers flowed through new courses. The very landscape of the cosmos had been reconfigured by the violence of the conflict. But the war was over, and now came the hardest part: to rule. The three male sons of Cronus, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades gathered to decide the division of the cosmos. According to some sources, they drew lots for the three main realms. According to others, the division was decided by common agreement. What remains constant is the result. Zeus obtained dominion over the sky, the highest and brightest realm from which he could oversee everything that occurred in the cosmos. He became the king of the gods, the father of immortals and mortals alike, the guarantor of order and justice throughout the universe. Poseidon received lordship over the seas, the oceans, and all the waters of the world. His trident became the symbol of his absolute power over the marine depths, and his stormy temperament would forever reflect the unpredictable nature of his domain. Hades, the firstborn among the males, but the last to be freed from Cronus's belly, accepted the rule of the underworld, the realm of the dead, the place where all mortal souls would end their journey, fell under his eternal watch. The earth remained as common territory, a place where all three brothers could act, but none had absolute supremacy, and Mount Olympus became the seat of the new order, the home of the gods who had overthrown the Titans. But peace would not last forever. Gaia, the primordial earth, had not forgotten that her sons, the Titans, lay chained in Tartarus. She had not forgiven Zeus for the fate he had imposed on them. And in her offended mother's heart, she began to gestate a revenge that would threaten to destroy everything the Olympians had built. First, she sent Typhon. Typhon was the most terrifying being the cosmos had beheld until then. Born of the union between Gaia and Tartarus itself, he was a monster of apocalyptic proportions. His head brushed the stars. From his shoulders emerged 100 heads that spewed fire. His lower extremities were coils of monstrous creatures intertwined, and when he opened his mouth, the sound that emerged made the foundations of Olympus itself tremble. The gods felt terror. Some accounts tell that they fled to Egypt, transforming themselves into various creatures to escape Typhon's fury. But Zeus did not flee. The king of the gods knew that facing this monster was his responsibility, his ultimate test. The battle was brutal. Typhon was more powerful than any enemy Zeus had faced before. At some moments during the fight, the monster managed to tear away the god's sinews, temporarily incapacitating him. But Zeus recovered. With Zeus, the help of Hermes and Pan, he regained his strength and returned to combat with renewed determination. The final confrontation took place in Sicily. Zeus hurled Mount Etna upon Typhon, burying him under tons of volcanic rock. The monster remained trapped forever, and it is said that the volcano's eruptions are the echo of his eternal fury, the reminder that even under mountains of stone, some forces of chaos never truly die. But Gaia was not finished. After Typhon, she brought forth the giants, a race of colossal warriors destined to challenge the Olympians. The Gigantomachy, as this new war, and came to be known, was another bloody chapter in the history of the cosmos. The giants attacked Olympus with a ferocity reminiscent of the worst days of the Titanomachy. However, there was a prophecy. The giants could not be defeated by the gods alone. The intervention of a mortal was needed, and that mortal was Heracles, the semi-divine son of Zeus, whose strength and valor would tip the scales in favor of the Olympians. The war ended with the victory of the gods. The giants were defeated and buried under islands and mountains, where they remain to this day, perhaps awaiting an opportunity that will never come. And Zeus, at last, was able to rule in peace. The king of the gods established the order that would govern the cosmos for eons. He distributed functions among his brothers and sisters. He fathered children with various goddesses and mortals, expanding the Olympian pantheon. He created laws that both immortals and mortals had to obey. And from his throne on Olympus, he oversaw every aspect of existence, acting as supreme judge, as guarantor of destiny, as father of all. The stone that Cronus had devoured, believing it was Zeus, was placed at Delphi, at the center of the known world, where it became the omphalos, the navel of the earth, an eternal reminder of the prophecy that could not be avoided, of the mother who sacrificed everything to save her son, of the young god who emerged from the shadows to claim what was rightfully his. Zeus had fulfilled his destiny. He had freed his siblings. He had defeated the Titans. He had survived Typhon and the giants. And he had established a new order that would last until the end of time. But perhaps the most extraordinary thing about his story is none of his victories. Perhaps the most extraordinary thing is what he represents. The idea that even the most absolute power can be challenged. The notion that children are not condemned to repeat their father's mistakes. The certainty that destiny, no matter how terrible it may seem, can be faced with determination and courage. Cronus tried to devour the future to preserve his present, and in doing so, he guaranteed exactly the result he intended to avoid. Uranus tried to chain his children to protect his throne, and he was overthrown by the very offspring he feared. The cosmos is built upon paradoxes like these, upon the irony that fear creates precisely that which it fears. Zeus understood something his predecessors never comprehended. Power is not maintained by eliminating threats. It is maintained by creating alliances, by inspiring loyalty, by building an order that others want to preserve. That is why he freed the Cyclopes when Cronus would have kept them chained. That is why he earned the gratitude of the Hecatonchires instead of their resentment. That is why, when he finally sat upon the throne of Olympus, he was not alone. He was surrounded by allies who had chosen to follow him. And so the boy who was hidden in a cave in Crete became the ruler of the universe, the child who was saved by a stone, wrapped in swaddling clothes, transformed into the father of gods and men. The spark that had opened its eyes in the mountains became the fire that illuminated Olympus forever. Centuries passed, eras succeeded one another. Mortals were born, lived, died, and were forgotten by the millions. Empires rose and fell like waves against the shore. Civilizations flourished and were extinguished like flowers in an infinite field. But the story of Zeus remained. Poets sang it around fires in ancient Greece. Playwrights performed it in the theaters of Athens. Sculptors immortalized it in marble and bronze. Painters captured it on vases and frescoes. Each generation found something different in it. A warning about the dangers of power, a celebration of triumph over adversity, a reflection on the nature of fathers and sons, an exploration of what it means to challenge destiny. 3,000 years after Hesiod wrote the Theogony, the story lives on. It continues to resonate in every book, every film, every work of art that reinterprets it for a new audience. And it will continue to resonate as long as there are human beings capable of lifting their gaze to the sky and wondering what lies beyond the clouds. Because that is what true myths do. They do not die. They do not fade. They transform. They evolve. They find new voices to tell them and new ears to hear them. And every time someone speaks the name of Zeus, every time someone remembers the story of the god who dethroned his own father and ruled the universe with an iron hand, that myth comes back to life. Olympus may no longer exist as the Greeks imagined it. The temples have fallen. The altars have grown cold. The sacrifices ceased millennia ago. But the essence of what Zeus represents remains present in every human being who refuses to accept their destiny as inevitable, in every child who decides to be different from their father, in every person who looks at the future not with fear, but with the determination to forge it with their own hands. That is the true legacy of Zeus. Not the thunderbolt, not the throne, not the power over skies and storms. It is the radical idea that the established order can be changed, that tyrants can fall, that the future is not written in stone, no matter what the prophecies say. And as long as there is a single human being who believes in that idea, Zeus will remain alive. Not as a god on a throne of clouds, but as something far more powerful, as a symbol, as an inspiration, as the eternal spark that ignites the fire of change. The boy from Crete opened his eyes thousands of years ago, and the universe was never the same again. If this story touched something within you, write in the comments, "I too choose to face my destiny."